Hi, I'm Erismia Placides.
Hi, I'm Aditi Chopra, and this is Liberty Leading the People. And it was painted by Eugene Delacroix. I hope I'm saying that right. It was painted in 1830 Common Era, painted by oil on canvas, and it is the Romanticism style. Okay, so Liberty Leading the People clearly utilizes Romanticism due to the following characteristics. It showcases the artistic style of the era, and it often idealized aspects of war due to the fact that war combines violence, terrorism, and heroism. And it's similar to other romantic works of art. It portrays elements of sublime through its sense of grandeur, intensity, and greatness. Sublime is also in other romantic paintings, such as The Wreck of the Hope and The Eruption of Vesuvius. I don't know if I'm saying that right either, but you can see both those paintings on the right-hand side. And the painting uses dark colors and bold brushstrokes, both of which are specific to Romanticism. It focuses on history, and Romanticism tends to be more self-aware and accepting. This is prevalent through the painting's political commentary and social aspects relevant to that particular time. The painting's boldness might even be as far as propaganda. It symbolizes the conquest of the French people and represents as pure of the revolutionary cause and for liberty and change. It's painted oil on canvas, and the painting was completed in 1830 and then exhibited in the Paris Salon in 1831, where it was bought by the French government with the intent of reminding the citizen king Louis Philippe of how he came in power. And this did not occur, and instead the painting was returned to Delacroix after the June Rebellion of 1832, where it appeared occasionally until entering the collection of the Palais du Louvre in Paris, where it remains today. The painting depicts the Revolution of July from day 27 to 29, 1830, which is known as the Three Glorious Days. Liberty is commemorated as an allegorical figure. It's represented as a personification through the woman in the central point of the painting. The woman symbolizes the idea that led the revolutionaries, and herself, she represents the ideals of romantic paintings. Delacroix depicts revolution as one which unites all classes against the monarch and nobility. Delacroix not only depicts liberty and victory, but also highlights the consequences of the revolution, such as violence and bloodshed. And it utilizes the romantic style, which is realistic but with dramatic theatrical lighting, soft, rounded lines that embody the figures depicted, and it has a depth and foreground with little to no background, only a cloud of fog. Delacroix painted Liberty Leading the People to commemorate the French Revolution, acknowledges support for it, and honor France. And it glorifies everyday people who are involved in the war and the role of France's citizens in that war. It acknowledges the sacrifices civilians made for the sake of the revolution against a corrupt governmental regime. And it takes a poignant tone as the revolution would be thought by some to have been in vain since it was pre-Napoleonic rule, and it served as a form of propaganda. And Delacroix painted this painting to positively symbolize the conquest of the French people during their July Revolution of 1830. And Delacroix uses the woman as a focal point to symbolize the revolutionary cause as being pure and for liberty and change. And he paints the revolution as united, pure, and overall virtuous. So the content in the painting is embodied by the personification of liberty, which is the central figure, and she represents the progress and freedom of the French Revolution. Her breasts are visible, referencing Greek and Roman embodiment of democracy through women, and her face is in the classical profile like Greek and Roman women, both of which is represented by the painting on the right, which is, or not the painting, the sculpture, sorry, which is Aphrodite, and she represents both the classic profile and the visibility of women's breasts. She's leading the people over barricades and dead bodies. She's carrying a flag of revolution and a musket in her hands. And the lower class gentleman with a pistol and sword, he has a pistol in his waist. He's holding a sword in his right hand. He's wearing a shirt with no jacket, symbolizing that he is lower class. And he has a pin in his hat to show his revolutionary sympathies. The upper class gentleman right next to him in a top hat holding a rifle is nicely dressed. He's in a top hat, jacket, and a vest, and he's holding a hunting rifle instead of a pistol. And both of those things represent the fact that he is a middle class man, and it shows the middle class's interest in the war as well. These two gentlemen worked to show that the war united all classes against the monarchy and nobility. And on the left, you can see the part of the painting that has these two men highlighting the class distinctions, which united in the revolutionary clause. And the man lying on the bottom left, who is wearing a sleeping shirt as if he has been dragged up from his bed and murdered. He's only wearing one sock and his shirt is pulled up and he's nude from the waist down. And that man highlights the consequences of the revolution being death and violence. Delacroix manages to showcase the violence and bloodshed of the war in an unidealized way, and he utilizes loose brushwork and vibrant colors to create a sense of order in a relatively chaotic space. It was painted during the Romantic period. It focuses on history and idealized aspects of war. It has focused on violence and terrorism, and it glorified heroism. It was painted in 1830 based on July Revolution of 1830, and it reflects on the content of the painting. So this period in time influenced Delacroix into creating Liberty Leading the People, which positively reflected on the revolution, the rise of the ideals of democracy, and the fall of the monarchy and its tyranny along with it. This piece in some ways is propaganda as it highlights the revolution in a pure and positive light. Although Delacroix doesn't undermine the negative effects of the revolution, he clearly points out the violence and death which erupted from the revolution.
So Delacroix's purpose in creating Liberty Leading the People was he wanted to depict a event that was happening in his country at the moment because he wanted to voice his support of the July Revolution of 1830 and what he felt was a justified revolt against the oppressive government and the monarchy. Despite not actively participating in the July 1830 revolt, his work is meant to commemorate the French revolutionaries who died and honor their sacrifice for his country. This can be seen in the piece's symbolism, which features the allegorical woman as a symbol of the liberty they aspired for in France during the revolution. Delacroix portrays people of all classes uniting in the political upheaval that would result in the overthrow of the reigning monarch Charles X from the throne. Some themes that you can pick up from the painting is firstly, loss and sacrifice. Many French revolutionaries died in the revolt against the monarchy. They sacrificed their lives for French liberty and freedom. And you can see at the bottom of the painting, their dead and wounded bodies strewn about. Delacroix wanted to commemorate those who risked their lives for the revolution. Another central theme is liberty. The woman in the painting serves as an allegory for liberty. The symbolic French revolutionary character she represents is often referred to as Marianne. Atop her head rests a red Phrygian cap, which were worn in the ancient world by freed slaves to signify freedom. She holds the tricolor French national flag, a symbol of her French revolutionism. And the battle this painting depicts is the July Revolution of 1830, when French civilians overthrew the monarchy in their pursuit of liberty and democracy. And then my final theme that I noticed was class unity. Many men of all classes are depicted in the fight against the monarchy and the ruling class. So here we can see in a top hat and armed with a rifle, a man representing the middle class. And then beside him is a man dressed in a working shirt and an apron, indicating that he's a factory worker and of lower socioeconomic class. And yet together the men stand united against their common enemy. So the first piece I wanted to compare it to is Athena from the Great Altar of Zeus and Athena at Pergamon. So this piece depicts Athena in a battle with the giants. There's a lot of dramatic intensity of the figures and movement, which we can also see in the romantic piece, Liberty Leading the People. Athena's Grecian form is similar to the woman in the Delacroix painting, with her head being shown in profile and the victorious portrayal of her in the heat of battle. The style of the woman's dress in Delacroix's piece is reminiscent of the Greek sculpture of a lot of Greek sculpture that we can also see in Athena of Pergamon. So then the second piece I want to talk about is Alexander mosaic from the House of Fawn. So this piece represents a glorious high point of tension in battle between Darius and Alexander the Great. There's a lot of excitement and movement within the piece, and also a lot of tragedy and loss in this victorious moment for the Greeks. These similarities in theme can also be seen in Liberty Leading the People. Lastly, I wanted to talk about There's Nothing to Be Done from Disasters of War by Francisco de Goya. So this piece depicts a scene from war, specifically the bloody French occupation of Spain. It is a political piece that was depicting in its time current events that the artist Goya lived through. So he took the same rip from the headlines approach to art Delacroix used in Liberty Leading the People. There is a sense of loss and tragedy in the piece that can also be seen in Delacroix's piece, Liberty Leading the People. For my attribution, I chose Scene of the Massacre at Chios by Delacroix. So this piece, also by Delacroix, completed prior to Liberty Leading the People, depicts the bloody aftermath of a war fought during the Greek War of Independence from the Ottoman Empire that took place around the 1820s. It was a modern subject for its time. Like Liberty Leading the People, Delacroix chose to depict an event from contemporary times. This was a departure in European art, as artists would usually choose to depict scenes from antiquity, like the Bible or Greek mythology. The two pieces also share similarities in theme. The Greek War of Independence was fought for their liberty and freedom from the Turkish Empire, which the July Revolution of 1830 also shared in its struggle for freedom. They're both highly dramatic in their figures. In both pieces, you can see the devastating misery that accompanies their fight for revolution, as the bottom of the piece is littered with the dead and suffering. So I think how Liberty Leading the People demonstrates continuity within artistic tradition is that it displays ancient Greek and Roman influence. The woman's head is shown as profile as it would be on a Greek or Roman coin depicting a ruler. The visibility of her breast was a decision made by the artist as a reference to ancient Greek art. These influences from Greek antiquity allude to ancient Greek values of democracy and freedom, Greece being viewed as the birthplace of democracy. Liberty Leading the People depicts the July Revolution of 1830 when French civilians overthrew King Charles X, X. This chapter of French history represents a new future for France as they abolished the monarchy in favor of liberty and democracy. I think how Liberty Leading the People influenced work following it is that while many artists at this time referred to events from antiquity like the Bible or Greek mythology to depict in their work, Delacroix looked to the present and created art about current events going on. This approach to art of depicting events ripped from the headlines was popular amongst Romantic painters. I think if College Board includes this work on the AP exam, you would need to know what event is being depicted in the painting, which is the July Revolution of 1830. You need to know the woman's symbolism as an allegory for French liberty, the ancient Greek and Roman present influence in the piece, and the contemporary approach to depicting current events in art that defined Romanticism. And these are our works cited. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.